Please, can you switch it off? Okay, thank you. Much better. Okay, we are running a little bit late, but nevertheless, welcome to this session, which has the title Agricultural Livelihoods Between Development and Disruptions. As the title says, the contributions to this session, they all put the farmer's livelihood in the center of their interest, but they look at it from very different perspectives. They investigate production and consumption practices. They look at perceptions and decisions that shape these livelihoods. Some of the contributions focus more on how livelihoods can be improved by innovations or support programs, so they address the development aspect in the title. Others put their focus on the disruptions, that is, the obstacles, conditions, and events that harm livelihoods, and ask how they may be overcome. Of course, in real life, both aspects are always intertwined. Approaches to the same topic from two opposite directions, however, promise fertile grounds for discussion and interesting exchange in our session. Moreover, we meet here in a very interdisciplinary context, with research related to cropping and food systems, to ecology, or to social systems, topics that have entire sessions in other parts of the Tropentag program. Most of our contributions actually consider the interlinkages between them, and it is this interdisciplinarity which was actually my personal reason to chair this session. Last not least, we have contributions from around the globe with a high degree of international collaboration. So, altogether, choosing 5 oral presentations from about 40 submissions was not easy. I finally aimed, on one hand, for balancing for the diversity in the approaches that I just outlined, and on the other hand, I try to give preference to contributions that take a broader approach and give a broader insight into each approach. And corresponding to each talk, there would then be a group of posters that go deeper into the specific aspects or into detailed case studies. Those posters, however, are only presented tomorrow morning or in the online poster sessions. Nevertheless, let us now start with the first presentation, which will directly address the antagonism between development and disruption. We learned something about a development program in Ghana and how its success is affected by corruption. It also gives our wonderful hosts here in Prague the honor to open this session. So please, Sylvester Agielman, the floor is yours, and we are curious to listen to your presentation.
Thank you. Please pardon my voice. Unfortunately, I'm a bit sick, so the voice is as terrible as the subject that I'm here to present on, which is corruption. So I'll try my best so that you can hear me very well. So my name is Sylvester, and I have with me here one of the authors for this particular work that we are putting together, Professor Bavarova, who also happens to be my HOD. I'm a postdoc student here in this particular university. So the subject that I'll be presenting on is how corruption affects farmers' participation in agricultural production support programs, and we are using Ghana as an evidence. So, as we all know, corruption has a significant effect, a negative effect, let me put it that way, on state policies and also economic development in general. It is known also that the SDGs cannot be achieved, especially in developing countries, if the subject of corruption is not tackled head on. Specifically, to achieve zero hunger, which is the second sustainable development goal, countries in sub-Saharan Africa has introduced intensification programs with the aim of providing subsidized inputs, mainly fertilizers and hybrid seeds, to farmers in order to increase productivity, which will help enhance food security. There are evidences that which are empirical, that these programs have had a positive effect on farmer productivity in general. However, there are also evidence that some farmers are not interested in participating in some of these programs, mainly because of some activities of corruption, which are mainly input diversion or political favoritism and elite capture. Yet there are only studies on this field, okay, are very scarce in general. The government of Ghana in 2017 also introduced a similar production support program, which is known as the Planning for Food and Jobs program. The main objective of this program is to enhance productivity by providing inputs to farmers, and by so doing, involving more of the unemployed youth in the program, hence the name Planting for Food and Jobs. The program has specific pillars, which looks at provision of subsidized fertilizers to farmers, and also hybrid seeds. It provides pesticides, which are free extension services, and also provide training for farmers on sustainable agricultural practices by using the free extension services that is provided under the same program. Another pillar of the program is also a marketing platform where the farmers can sell their produce after cultivation. And then there is an e-agricultural platform where the database of the farmers are collated as well. Evidence from the first 2 years of the program's implementation shows that it has been successful in regards to productivity increases. However, the program is also challenged that there are issues of elite capture, input diversion, and smuggling, which our study is focused on. Against this background, this study therefore looks at analyzing the effect of corruption perception on farmers' attitude towards production support programs, production support program participation for the first time, because to the best of our knowledge, there has not been any of such empirical study so far. We had a survey conducted between December 2018 and April 2019. We did the survey in Northern Ghana. We selected Northern Ghana specifically because the area share borders with 3 West African countries where most of the inputs are smuggled through the porous borders that the country has. So we randomly selected 10 districts, out of which a random selection of 22 communities were done. We, at the end, selected 285 beneficiaries of the program. And then in the absence of a register for the non-beneficiaries, we use purposive sampling to get 255 non-beneficiaries from the 22 communities that we randomly selected. And that brought our sample size to a total of 540. However, the analysis was based on 502 after cleaning out the outliers and cleaning the data in general. So we could see a fairly balanced sample size of 252 beneficiaries and 250 non-beneficiaries. So the study conceptualized that a farmer's attitude towards the Planning for Food and Jobs program can be affected by their corruption perception. So attitude can affect participation in the program. Corruption perception level can also affect their participation. However, the the positive attitude of the farmer towards the program can be also influenced by the level of corruption perception of that particular farmer. So that is the concept out of which we build our hypothesis as well, which are two of them with sub-hypotheses. So we use the logistic regression model to do our analysis with focusing on the key variables that I mentioned already. Farmer attitudes towards the program, the level of corruption perception about the PFJ program, and also we build with our last hypothesis an interaction term between attitude and corruption perception. So by participation in PFJ, we measured it as a dummy. That is 1 if a farmer participates and 0 otherwise. And then corruption perception was also on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the least. And then attitude was also on a similar scale, which we measured as the expected increase in productivity and also benefits associated with the program. Going back to corruption perception, which I didn't stress on some of the points, but I mentioned earlier on that perception or corruption perception in this case, we are referring to the perceived input smuggling and the elite capture of political favoritism. So our estimated logistic regression model shows that farmers' attitude towards the PFJ program has a positive significant effect on their participation in the program. So farmers are willing to participate in the program if their attitude or positive attitude towards the program, or if they expect increases in productivity and high benefits associated with the program. Also, higher levels of corruption reduces farmers' participation in the program. However, our interaction term also shows us that the influence of positive attitude on farmers' participation decision reduces when corruption perception level is high, and vice versa. So that is what our findings shows us. So it means that corruption perception or lower corruption perception should rather complement positive attitude towards the program in order to increase participation. This is also in line with some studies that have been done, which concluded that positive attitude complemented by low corruption perception increases entrepreneurial intention, although this was not in the field of agriculture. So as I've mentioned earlier on, in conclusion, the higher positive attitude should be complemented by low perception of corruption in the PFJ program in order to increase participation. In view of this, we therefore recommend that there should be an electronic transfer of the input voucher, okay, which is the subsidy that the farmers use to redeem the inputs. There should be an electronic version of this transferred to the farmer directly, rather than the current paper system that is being used, because the current system depends on a paper voucher that is distributed through the extension services under the program. So we also recommend that future studies can look at the use of panel data in order to capture long-term effects, because attitudes and perceptions changes over time. So that is it. I'll pause to acknowledge these institutions and individuals who supported us during our data collection and the entire study. And thanks for your attention. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. We are taking questions. Yes?
Thank you. I was thinking about the attitude. You know, attitude is very important in our decisions. To participate in program, to buy something, to do something. But in this program, once the households, these individuals who are a part of the program, so as I understand, you are capturing their attitude once they are already in the program. So the link I see here is not that for non-beneficiaries, it is their attitude towards program. But for the beneficiaries, their attitude is rather happening after their participation. So their experience with the program is affecting their attitude.
Exactly.
And in your analysis, now you're looking at it from the other direction, how their attitude has affected their participation, right?
Yeah.
But there's a time dimension that's, I'm questioning that, because for those people, they have already experienced the program. And once you capture their attitude is definitely affected by their experience of the program. So the direction of the result is, it can be a bit misleading. How could you explain this?
Yeah, you are right to point out that those who are already in the program, their attitude is influenced by what they've already experienced in the program, their experience with the program. Also, as we shared, the data also includes those who are non-beneficiaries as well. So we can also say that the data captures the dynamics of both who are having some level of as you said, some influence based on their current state because they are beneficiaries, and also those who are currently outside the program, who are potential beneficiaries or could remain non-beneficiaries also. So that is how I also see it, that it captures the dynamics because both participants and non-participants are in there.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was another question right here in the center. Yes?
Thank you very much. Very, very interesting. I've got a PhD student who is working on the subsidy program, the input subsidy program in South Africa, in Ghana. So I'm very much interested on the topic. Now, there are those participants who have experienced the program positively or otherwise. That experience could be in terms of benefits in relation to agricultural productivity, etc., or those who may not have succeeded to do so for a variety of reasons, okay? Which is going to influence their attitude towards even whether they are going to tell you corruption really is happening or not. How do we control that link? In other words, how do you make sure that the response you are getting from the farmers really captures the reality on the ground? Some farmers might say they see that there is some corrupt practices happening, but they may not disclose that because they are benefiting from the program. Okay? So how do we control that? And how do we ensure that the response you are getting is capturing what's going on the ground? Thank you.
Yeah, Thanks for the question. You are right to point out also that because some farmers are already benefiting from the program, the responses might not be forthcoming in this regard. And that is why we tried to use more of a scale, okay, to measure for both the beneficiaries and non-beneficiaries on the scale of their perception, how they see the program being run in regards to the smuggling, the elite capture. And also there are farmers who, based on our survey, were forthcoming even though they are beneficiaries of the program, because they see this affecting them as well, because inputs that they were supposed to receive do not get to their hands at the end of the day, or they receive less of it. So it is a two sides of the coin, whereas some are benefiting and might not, in some cases, with the issue of the political favoritism. If he's, part of the leading political party and is benefiting because of this, it might, you are correct to say that it might not give us the correct response. However, there is also the other angle of it, which makes them give us the true response, which is how it affects them, how much or the quantity of the fertilizers or the inputs that they get at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you. I agree that you address a very difficult topic by a direct measurement of something that people usually do not talk about, corruption. And your study also emphasizes how important it is to consider the context, the societal context and political context of the more field-based interventions. I would also be curious how the farmers arrived at their perceived corruption, what they think about it, a little bit different from what you ask. What role do media play? Is there a lot of report on the news on, oh, here was a corruption case, there was a corruption case, and are there all other reports that address the positive examples?
Yeah, both media and the farmers themselves. Some farmers even told us or showed us the route where these inputs are smuggled. So the farmers, some of them, they know.
So it's also personal experience.
Exactly, personal experiences from the farmers as well were given during the survey, and also media reportage of inputs that were being smuggled to either Togo, Burkina, or Ivory Coast that were the security services were able to impound on. Also, influence the judgment of the farmers in regards to the corruption perception as well.
I think we all know that media prefer to talk about the scandals more than about the good news.
Yeah,
Maybe we can go deeper into that discussion point in the wrap-up session. So as I understand, the next presentation is not available. It was supposed to be an online presentation that should introduce us to to give a little overview on the diversity of farming types in Nigeria and how farming type is linked to the socio-economic conditions of the farm households. So unfortunately, we have to miss that one and proceed straight to the next presentation, which takes us from an analysis of the practice of farming to the question on who is open for innovations and why. And the adoption of organic management in cotton production in Benin served as an example for that. And I hope that now Ghislaine Einhounden is online. Can we get her on the Zoom? Ghislaine, can you say something?
Yes, hello. Just a second, I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, thank you. And can you briefly also switch on your camera so we can say hello to you?
Yes, I was trying, but it seems that, let me try again, but I was not allowed to do so. It seems that you have to give me right to share, to open my camera.
Else, then maybe we can do that during the discussion. And we now concentrate on your slides, and please tell us what you found on the heterogeneities in the adoption of organic farming in Benin.
Okay, thanks a lot for giving the floor. I'm Ghislain Ayonton. I'm a PhD student at University of Parakou. Here, we'll be talking about heterogeneities in the adoption of organic cotton in Benin. So this study has been conducted together with some other researchers from universities in Benin. So what's the primary motivation of this work? So we mainly focus on cotton production, just because organic farming started in Benin with organic cotton production. And traditionally, we grow conventional cotton production in Benin because smallholder farmers usually receive higher support from government and policymakers, just because it contributes significantly to our gross domestic product, just to say economic importance. And based on that economic importance, policymakers and governments usually support farmers by providing to them subsidies, chemical inputs on credit, and also motivate them to apply large amounts of agrochemicals with the purpose of increasing yields and also ensuring competitiveness. But as time is going, we notice detrimental effects on environmental and health of cotton growers in Benin. And then since 1996, organic cotton production has been promoted by NGOs in Benin as a way to make cotton production more sustainable. But it's till now, we still notice less commitment towards organic farming. Despite tremendous studies, efforts that has been conducted to motivate farmers to grow organic cotton, the rate of adoption is still lower. So by looking at the theory of adoption and diffusion that states several channels through which farmers can adopt innovation, we expect that still in organic farming adoption in Benin, not all farmers are expected to be early adopters of innovation. And then several factors can affect their decision to take up organic cotton or not, even at different stages of adoption. So throughout the study, we intend to target heterogeneities by looking at farmers' attitude, how they contribute to the adoption decision, and also to the stages of adoption. And finally, what factors drive adopters' profiles. So we conducted our study into districts in Benin, Behonko and Kandi, that we selected based on some criteria: regional diversity, diversity in also institutional support, and also the presence of organic cotton production. So we use a multi-stage sampling procedure to select our villages, and we selected 14 villages. And then in total, we collected data from 91 organic and 149 conventional households. We use both qualitative and quantitative data for our analysis, as we intend to look at how heterogeneities in terms of farmers' attitude affects the adoption stages of organic farming. We use the number of years farmers is experienced in growing organic cotton as our dependent variable. And then from that variable, we use K-mean cluster analysis in order to categorize farmers, adopters of organic farmers in terms of several groups, in terms of early adopters, followers, and late adopters. So finally, we end up with 3 groups and also conventional farmers group. We use a likelihood ratio test to see to what extent each group is different from each other. And as we can see here that our likelihood ratio test confirm the difference, that existing difference between each group, that is between early adopters, followers, late adopters, and non-adopters, that is conventional farmers. To continue, we apply multinomial logics to assess the driving effects of some of our covariates, mainly heterogeneities in terms of attitude that we measure with environmental attitude, profit-oriented attitude, information-seeking attitude, risk attitude, and we add up with several other control variables, including education, age, household size, composition, household assets, so on and so forth. We see to what extent those variables contribute to the adoption of organic farming. Here, that's how we measure our attitudinal variables. We base from the literature review and also scoping study. And with farmers on the field through participatory approaches, we define some items, like for instance, profit item that counts 6 items. And then we use some items, measure on a Likert scale from 1 to 5, from 1 strongly disagree to 5 strongly agree. And we apply component analysis to reduce the dimensionality of our items so that you have some classes of variables. Finally, we have a profit-oriented attitude, environmental-oriented attitude, information-seeking attitude. For instance, one item profit attitude could be whether it's important to get a higher price for the product. Environment, it's important to care about the environment. Is it important to apply agrochemicals in the field? Information-seeking attitude, one item is, for instance, how it's important to look for advice, to go to visit other farms on their other farmers in their farm so that you learn by doing. This attitude could be that, for instance, it's important to get advice from others. It's important to contemplate others, see progress in other fields before applying the technologies. So as we add up also some dimension of qualitative analysis through ethnographic approach, it was to see how family, for instance, social identity, such as family influence, farm group, also influence the adoption of organic farming in organic cotton farming in Benin. We also see to what extent economic motivation, price premium, institutional aspect, whether it's public or private institution that support organic or conventional cotton, influence the adoption of organic cotton in Benin. So as a preliminary result here, we focus on our motive, and we see here that regarding the type of farmers, pioneers, followers, or laggard, pioneers is seen as early adopters, and laggard is seen here as late adopters. So we see that for all groups of farmers, we observe that they were mostly driven by price premium, like receiving higher price premium for cotton fiber, for cotton seed. It's also important for them to obtain, to sustain their health, but we do not see significant or higher value descriptive statistics for soil fertility. For instance, when we talk to extension services, they might say that, okay, farmers grow organic cotton because they are mostly interested to sustain their soil fertility through crop rotation, management, and cropping. To continue here, I present the result of our multinomial logics, and we see here, for instance, that we present our result in terms of relative risk ratio, which means that for a coefficient smaller than 1, we have negative effect, and for a coefficient greater than 1, we have a positive effect. For instance, for sex here, for gender, we see that women are mostly oriented, driven by organic cotton. So we also see that organic cotton farmers usually received higher support in terms of advisory services, extension services, and also they have less farm size just because perhaps they have to, it's difficult to get enough fertilizer, organic fertilizer and biopesticide for a large plot size, because farmers have to, the majority of the time, have to produce themselves those production inputs. In terms of attitude, we see that organic farmers are more concerned about the environment. They also are more concerned, are profit-oriented, like for instance, receiving higher price for the products. They also have less information-seeking attitude, which means that they usually concentrate themselves, work in group without too much going outside, learning from others. It's like a circle where they just work together in that circle. They also experience less production risks, mostly regarding climate change, difficulties in accessing inputs compared to conventional households. Our qualitative analysis show that family influence parents is a strong support, strong determinant of adoption of organic farmers, like through generation. My parents grow organic cotton, I have to grow myself. It's also important for them to sustain their health. Economic motivation we have been talking about through price premium, production factors where it might be really easier for them and mostly for women to produce themselves biopesticide, organic input so that to apply on their farm. And institution is also important here because organic farming is promoted by national NGOs, and then those NGOs usually support farmers, women, to make themselves their own biopesticide or organic input so that to apply on their small plot size. So in conclusion, we can say that adopters' profiles are common in terms of their orientation toward the environment. They care more about environment. They also care more about receiving higher price for the products. They have less information-seeking behavior attitude. They are partly risk-averse, and other factors that we have been looking at here, including household characteristics, gender, livestock units, economic motivation, conventional sectors, and also farmers group influence the adoption of organic farming. So thanks a lot for listening to our presentation. Your comments, suggestions are welcome here. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I ask you again to try and switch on your camera?
Yes, I'm trying, but saying here that I cannot start my video because you have to give me the right to do so. It's like it's a setting in Zoom. You have to give me the right to do so.
Can our technical support help in that? The video is on. So I don't know where that bug is, and I'm sorry that we have to discuss without seeing your face. But then nevertheless, are there questions from the audience to this presentation? No questions? Well, then I would like to refer back to our topic of the Tropentag, if agroecological farming can feed the world. You showed us here an example on a non-food crop. So how is that relevant with regard to the question on food security and nutrition?
Thanks. Is this a question for me? To me? Yeah, thanks. I think this is this research is part of a large effort where we were looking at driving forces of adoption, this adoption of organic farming, and also mostly there are other people that focus on effects of organic farming on food and nutrition security and also poverty dimension. So first of all, how it's important, in Benin, usually the argument that NGOs usually provide to farmers by motivate them to switch to organic farming is that you have to apply sustainable farming practices in terms of intercropping, crop rotation, you apply using organic fertilizers, and those practices are usually likely to increase food availability, like food production diversity within the household, and then at the end will enhance household food and nutrition security. Because at first we know that in developing countries, rural households usually consume the majority of their harvest, of their own production. So it is in
Do
that
the farmers
effort.
that you interviewed still grow food crops along with the cotton?
Yes, to be certified cotton farmers, organic cotton farmers, organic farmers, you have to grow everything without chemical inputs. So it's not just about only organic cotton. If you are organic cotton farmers, you have to grow your maize, all other crops without any chemical inputs.
Okay.
So it's the entire production systems.
Okay, thank you. And finally, just to highlight again your findings, can one say that in your study, it was the pioneers that were more motivated by an idealistic idea, and then the followers more by their commercial interest?
Yes, we could say so. Yes, mostly because pioneers are like precursors. Like when organic farming started in the region, they were the first one who started like working with NGOs. So they were also more experienced.
Okay, then I hope in future we have many idealistic farmers in our farming communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, you too.
We may come back to some of your points in the wrap-up session. So now we would move from African case studies to Asia, and from crop-based farming to more integrated farming system, in particular with the promotion of livestock. And the focus of the next study is on how development can be supported by institutional arrangements. I also like this study a lot because it is a nice example of a successful international collaboration and of academia working with government bodies. So I now invite Mohamed Takinin to the floor to give us his presentation.
Okay, good afternoon. I am Muhammad Takiuddin from University of Mataram, province of West Nusa Tenggara, Indonesia. If you want to check in map, our position close with the Bali in Indonesia. Thanks for your coming to my presentation. I think it is a great opportunity and most valuable time for me to share my ideas in Tropentag forum, because it is the first time for me to provide presentation. At this time, I will provide a presentation with the title Institutional Innovation for Improving Food Security based on Agroecological Integrated Farming in developing countries, evident from Indonesia. My topic, introduction, methodology, result and discussion, and conclusion and outlooks. As we know, food insecurity is the main challenges for developing countries, including Indonesia, and currently become serious in the midst of the continuing impacts of double contemporary global threats, both COVID-19 pandemic and climate change-induced risk. If we refer to the recent Global Food Security Index in 2022, in this report, as saw that Indonesia food security is 59.2 in 2021, or decrease rather than the previously years, around 61.4. If we detail in the four aspect, the indicator of the global food security index, the first, if we're talking about affordability, actually Indonesia is good enough with the point 74.9, because the government, Indonesian government, was conducted measures to increasing people access through food safety net program, like they keep stabilizing food prices and food aid to poor people. And then availability, 63.7, adequately food supply. If we refer to the statistical data, paddy production in 2021 increased 1.14% from 2020, and rice production in 2021 increased around 1.12% from 2020. But in this aspect, agricultural food infrastructure need to be improved. If we're talking about the quality and safety, I think this is very bit low, 48.5, related to nutritional standard lower than the global standard. And the last, natural resources and resilience is the lowest, 33, due to poor resilience related to lack of protected strong policy, as well as heavy vulnerable to exposure of climate-induced hazard and environmental pollution. Our concern is a lack of appropriate government policy is one of the main contributing factors to decline food security performance. Our main argument is institutional innovation by working into levels, both grassroots and local government organizations, as strategies to improve food security while taking into account agroecological condition. So this work is have the purpose to evaluate the deliverable outcome of the collaborative research between the livestock development and research Ministry of Agriculture and the University of Mataram, Indonesia, in collaboration with the University of New England, Australia, which supported by the Australian Centre for International Agricultural Research, or ASIAR, on changing of local government organizations in increasing livestock production based on integrated agricultural or crop co. We conducted 3 methodology: literature review, in-depth interview with the key informants, cattle farmers, both men and women, in 6 district province of West Nusa Tenggara as project sites, livestock office in 6 sites, and extension officer. And then we conduct focus group discussion, both in community and or cattle farmer group and district government. We use the research framework from the IFAD in 2015. If we're talking about the scaling out, we focus in 4 areas: innovation, learning and programming, leveraging, and scaling up. How to about the applied this framework based on the objective condition. In the area is innovation. This work started with existing appropriate technology packages for cattle farmer as deliverable result of previously research on works since 2011, and this existing appropriate technology is implemented by a farmer, and at some cases, by applied this appropriate technology, the farmer have improving of cattle productivity as for adapters, especially in planting and using leucaena as feed cattle. From this objective condition, we conducted scoping study on existing situation and condition, and then set up the scaling research by University of New England Middle, collaborate with the University of Mataram and Ministry of Agriculture. If we see in this graph, we can see we work in the two level. The first is the district government organization and the in the community farmer. University Mataram provide the increasing capacity, consultation and coordination, advocating and technical assistance for district government organization. And then the Ministry of Agricultural through Assessment Institute for Agriculture and Technology work on the node groups by the technical assistance, increasing capacity, mentoring, community services and facilitating. With the hope the node group will be expansion of the knowledge, the skill and the understanding to the other farmer by the peer group learning among farmer. We to the other group we call as the satellite group, and we have many satellite group. And then if we're talking about the leveraging in district government, the district government from the grounded evidence from the community experience and group as the substantial as the subject matter of the policy, and they have allocate annual budget and set up the scaling up from this research and this working based on the lesson learned from the community or groups. So I think it is the strengthening of the evidence or research-based policy. And the area scaling up, we're talking about that sustainability, scaling up result and multiple impacts. How the sustainability, scaling up result and multiple impact can we see, and like the tables, number of node existing to the end of the project, so as the actual node in the 6 district, and then number of implementing not implementing set group, and number of forage tree legume site established in node group, and then number of permanent scaling institution step exposed to IVMS. Conclusion and outlook is the institutional innovation implemented by collaborative work have encouraged increasing capacity and changing the ways of working of government staff in establishing work plan and local policy to increase food production of crop cow, integrated farming in line with food security policies, both provincial and district. And our results highlight the need to develop and implement an institutional innovation, focus on local government organization to advocate policy changes for improving food security governance based on local agroecological condition, focus on poor farmer in order to ensure that no one is left behind in the quest toward zero to hunger. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So this was a very complex institutional framework that you described there. Can you perhaps give a practical example what kind of new institutions were created in the context of the project, especially at the local level? Because as I understood the abstract, this was the improvement that you get a better linkage between local and national government structures.
We just provide the increasing capacity to the government levels, institutional government level, for to accelerating how to the lesson learned and good practices from the grounded level bring up to the policy. So we provide the training to the staff in the government level and how to they create and formulate the action plan. We give training like the visioning, how to develop vision and mission to reach the target and the policy. So our work really based on the lesson learned from the from the community and or group levels.
Okay, so it's a kind of extension system that you establish as a mediator between the different governance levels.
Maybe like enriching the subject and substantial policy.
Okay. We heard a lot in other sessions of Tropentag also about the need for having enabling structures, enabling institutional environments to implement all the innovations that are coming from the research community as well as from grassroots or farmer initiatives or innovations. And
yes, we want to
highlight
the policy based on the social practices. No, the government not neglected what happened in the local level.
Okay, sorry, I was capturing the discussion. Are there questions from the audience? Maybe we all get a little bit tired at the moment. It has been a long day already. Anyway, I have another last question. If you have a good connectivity between the local and the national governance institutions, do you think that will be less susceptible to corruption, like the topic in the first talk?
I
Just
think
a short answer, because we may again go back
even to
into
connect
that.
with the corruption issue, I think we need more explore. But based on our experience, it is very extra hard, extra work how to bring up the objective condition from the social practices to policy. I think we're talking about the corruption, might be they have the opportunity to happen, but our work is not touch about it.
Okay. So then let's come to the last presentation. Let's come to the last presentation today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The last presentation looks beyond the farm now and addresses a larger ecosystem that is the coastal mangrove forests in Indonesia and the value of this to the local communities. So please, Mrs. Ashara, please, we are looking forward to your presentation.
Here? Okay, thank you so much. So I'll just introduce myself again. So I'm Ashar Nijamdeen, a master's student from the University of Bonn. So I'm here to explain and to talk about exploring the well-being of communities adjacent to the coastal forest, focusing on the case study from Sri Lanka, mainly in the coastal area, which is mainly focusing on the mangrove agroecological system. So I would like to say that, mangrove forest plays an important role when it comes for the coastal ecological area, or we can say in the coastal area itself. So this provides lives and livelihoods for the millions of people around the world. And when we are considering the conservation and conservation methods in rural communities in the coastal ecosystem, we ought to think about the ecosystems as well. So mangrove forest plays an important role in this aspect. So we wanted to explore the well-being of these communities and how they are interconnected to the conservation, and how they are contributing to the conservation overall. So basically, we know these communities in the coastal areas are in the front line in facing the climate change and the marine pollution, as well as the different pollution impacts. The sea level rise and the extreme weather events and also other damages are caused in the coastal ecosystems can contribute to the well-being of these communities. So basically, we know that developing effective policies to ensure the future prosperity and sustainability and health of these coastal communities may need preliminary information to make decisions regarding the well-being. So currently, such information is very less and inadequate in the northern part of Sri Lanka. So my study and with my colleague that conducted during the COVID-19 in 2021, so we basically focused on to evaluate the contributions made by the mangrove forests that support and maintain human well-being, and to make the recommendations to effectively manage mangroves to improve the well-being of the community. So we know in Sri Lanka is going through a lot. So throughout the year, in this coastal society, the coastal community is being affected by the civil war for the 30 years, like from 83 to 2009, which was ended in 2009. And again in 2004 by tsunami, the mangrove forests are widely affected and uprooted, and there's a lot of problems due to the tsunami. And also like the economic crisis, which started in 2020, 21, and also it hyped up in 2022. So these communities are much affected through these social, ecological, and economic practices as well. So when it comes in terms of mangrove management in Sri Lanka, we can really say this, most of the mangrove management authorities are like more vested towards the government sector. And mainly, if I can say, it's it is more like one organization which is contributing the whole management aspect. For example, the Forest Department of Sri Lanka. So when we are looking at this, the connection between the stakeholders is very less, and the connection between the community and the authorities are much less when it comes for the conservation in Sri Lanka. As you can see in this image, the major portion was managed by the Forest Department. So in the positive note, in Sri Lanka, there are so many policies regarding mangrove conservation being implemented, and Sri Lanka became the first nation to protect the mangroves under its jurisdiction, like under law. So there are so many policies which were involved in mangrove management in Sri Lanka, and this was like highly praised by media in different international media, that Sri Lanka is like making a bold decision to protect the mangrove forest or the coastal mangrove ecosystem by its law. But so we know that mangrove protection, if it is like under law, that can really provide a healthy mangrove forest, or it can improve the ecosystem conditions as well as the well-being of the community which is related in this ecosystem. So, so we focused on this community, which is very interesting, in the northern part of Sri Lanka, which is an island in the northern part, which is the Mandetivu Island. So this island was mainly was a war-torn area for the last 30 years, and there's a mangrove forest throughout this area, and also there's a community which is living much more near to this mangrove forest area. And also, this is much more interesting for me because in the recent years, that in this area, the government are like proposing to build hotels within the mangrove forest, like tourist hotels, as for to interact with the tourists. And also they are like proposing bird sanctuaries in this area. So people are protesting for this, as well as the stakeholders are like protesting in this regard. So, so we understood that there's not a clear interconnection between this. For example, we do not really know whether the community is like interconnected to this agro society. I mean, like the agro, not the agro, but the ecological aspect, or are they like supporting to it, or are they not supporting to it? Because it's unclear. So that's why it was very interesting for me as for our team to explore this, whether the well-being is well-being is like addressed in this area. So this is the area that we focused on, where we saw there's a lot of mangrove forests, as well as the communities are living nearby. So we conducted a survey, a questionnaire survey on different components focusing on well-being. So which is like which includes the subjective and the relational and material aspects. And also like 30 households in Mandetivu or Sri Lanka were included in this questionnaire. And also we looked into different proxies under different these three aspects. And we conducted this for like 3 months. So when we were developing this questionnaire, so we looked into a household, the households which are like located in 10 kilometers from the mangrove areas. And we know, like, as we expected, we believe that if the mangroves are like protected by law, this will protect the, conserve and protect this area. And this will lead to a good, good or healthy living for the society. So what we looked at is the satisfaction with a range of economic concerns, including the cost of basic necessities and household income and financial security and standard living. And for the subjective well-being, we looked at the happiness and life satisfaction, thinking and feeling that your life is going well and not badly, basically. And the relational well-being is that relationship and connections and how we interact with others. So most of our respondents, we saw that they are unfortunately or unexpectedly not farmers, or they are not involved in fisheries in this community, but rather in other occupations. And the education level is not that bad when we are talking about Sri Lanka. So most of them are high school, they have finished their high school, and some of them are, they have finished their university education. And the age group that we looked was like from 20 years to 80 years old. And most of the participants, the active participants, were females in this study. So when we are looking at the material well-being, so the mangrove utilization was unexpectedly very low in this community. So it's like 80% of the community, they are not using any sort of the materials from this ecosystem. So which is very shocking for us. And also only 20% of the communities like using this mangrove or forest for their constructions, wood, or even for the fisheries. So even though the coastal ecosystem was destroyed by the civil war for 30 years, which ended in 2009, none of the respondents believe that these ecosystems reminds them of violence, conflicts, or insecurity, which is unlikely. Like, for example, because of the landmines, and also they cleared the mangrove forest for security reasons, and so many things happen in this area, but yet they have a positive impact, they have a positive outlook for this mangrove ecosystem. And none of them could relate that mangroves are contributing to their subjective well-being on the other way. And in terms of the relational well-being, we understand that none of the respondents believe that mangroves contribute to their relational well-being. So, but they cannot really recall that they cannot really recall any interconnections or any connection between these ecosystem with their livelihoods, with their personal lives. So, they believe that it made them happy during their fishing trips, and it made them feel relaxed, but it doesn't really mean that they are much more connected. So what does this mean? So we have a question here. So Sri Lanka is being protecting mangroves under its law. So, so we believe that this would really give a positive impact for this community to have a good or a positive outlook when it comes for the mangrove forest, or maybe if I could say the well-being. But as you can see in this picture, there is the sign which says in the local language to not to enter the forest. It is basically to banish the people who are like entering this, people to enter this forest. So it's basically like protecting and also like banning people to enter this forest to get their necessities. So, and we could in our trips to this place, we understood that there are so many neglections in this area and a lot of pollution as well. So we understand then. So we understand that if the policies and also like if there's the judicial laws are in the positive way, it does not really should ban the people to enter and to use this forest for their subsistence. Rather, this should really connect people together to conserve and to make it more enhanced to protect this area. So this is what we are like in the future. We wanted to understand the conservation initiatives need to consider the subsistence levels uses of these mangroves and other coastal resources. And also we believe that community-based coastal resource management needs to be introduced in these areas. And this is part of the ongoing research and this is part of the ongoing research that we are doing. So we are conducting more aspects in this research, including the extensive ethnobiological surveys and well-being and ecological and biophysical surveys as well. So thank you so much for now.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Okay. You hear me? Okay. Thank you very much. That was a very different view on a mangrove forest system, and a lot of surprising findings that you presented. And I think they would provoke questions from the auditorium. Yes?
Thanks for the presentation. I wanted to ask, based on your result, you said most of your respondents were not farmers. And
farmers.
that's also the use of the mangrove. About 80% of them said they don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at the social structure, the socioeconomic background of developing countries like Sri Lanka, do you think this could have an effect on the use of the mangrove? Because most of the respondents are not into farming.
I don't really believe so, because in Sri Lanka we are not doing much farming in the mangrove forest. Rather, we use it for like construction or for even for consumption or consuming fruits, or even some for medicinal values. So even though they are not farmers, so I think the utilization of this usage should be more than what we are expecting. So yeah.
Yeah. So I'm coming from the perspective of the social structure and the economic background of these people, the people. So take for instance, farmers are usually, as we know, based on the data, classified to be poor in developing economies. So if these are used for medicinal purposes and construction, don't you think people who are maybe working in and then earning some better income might not be using the mangroves compared to the farmers?
Might not use?
Yes.
I'm not so sure about that. I don't think I can really answer that without any data or any experience in this, but I believe that's a really interesting question which I can really look into.
Yeah, and I also wonder whether the low use of the resources is a result of the very strict protection of
Exactly,
the area.
that's
that
what
the
we wanted
government
to
kind of
enhance.
excluded the local communities
Yes,
actually from
because
the ecosystem.
there are like people, police patrolling every time in this area, and also you can't really get into trouble if you enter to this forest. So that's a major problem in Sri Lanka. So the connectivity, the gap has been increased. So people nowadays, they don't really care about this much because they know that this is not helpful and this is not gonna give them anything. So they are like moving away from this nature. So we want to build the connectivity, from a human to the nature, but the jurisdiction or the law, which should really enhance the conservation is, according to our results, according to this study, is showing the opposite results.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting and very, very contradictory. And actually, as I understand, you are arguing for more local institutions for protecting the forests that
Exactly.
are more integrative.
Exactly,
And
because
even more surprising that how the media headlines that you showed, they praise this as a best practice example. Yeah, I was complaining earlier that often the media prefer the scandals. Here they praised something, but if you look into it deeper,
yes.
it is not really a best practice example. So yeah, things are very complex. Maybe that is a very good entry already into our more general wrap-up discussion round, unless there is another burning question directly to this work here. Oh. Yeah, another thing that was different in your presentation is that you did not even use the word livelihood. You looked at well-being.
Yes.
And I put it in the end on purpose because I think that is an interesting question. Is livelihood security, livelihood development the same as improving of well-being? So we are curious to hear the opinion of maybe the other speakers, but of course also other members in the audience. Are you always happier, experience more well-being the moment you have a more secure livelihood and sufficient income? You emphasize the human nature relationships that
Exactly.
may also be an important contribution to well-being.
Yeah, indeed, because we did a similar survey in the Eastern Province as well. So they could really relate a lot of happiness and satisfaction when you come for this ecosystem than in northern area. So even for their mentality, they say it's very relaxing to know the forest and to relax in there. So I think well-being is not only the security, but also the satisfaction, as well as the mental health as well in a short form.
You have another comment on that?
The economic, yeah, thank you. Getting the farmers getting more or improving their economic well-being also brings some level of satisfaction to the farmers because they are able to cater for their basic needs and most of these programs, the program that I talked about, which is the Planting for Food and Job, are targeted at people who are small-scale farmers who are classified as poor within the communities and live in rural areas. So their improvement in their economic well-being also improves their satisfaction. But as you said, the general well-being of every person also goes beyond just the economic improvement of the economic situation of that particular person. So that is what I can say in regards to the production support program. Thank you.
Yeah, and even perception of justice in extending these support programs would improve the well-being as compared to the being jealous or frustrated by corruption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so finally, I wanted to close up, really. I wanted to widen the question, can agroecological farming feed the world? And ask whether feeding is really enough, or whether we should not ask, would agroecological farming improve the well-being around the world? But yeah, are you in a mood still to discuss a big question like that? Well, then I would say we take this question into tomorrow. For today, we are a bit exhausted. We will all fresh up probably over the conference lunch.
Hopefully the poster section will, I will bring up some of these discussions
yes,
tomorrow.
we can continue some discussion in the poster session tomorrow morning. And thank you very much for attending despite the late hour and for staying with us. Thank you. And thanks to the speakers for their presentations.
So tomorrow, what time will we